So last time we learned, we were dealing with the Ramban, with the idea of the relationship between the Sefer Bris, which was an elaboration of the first two Dibris, and then went down to Leisachmoid. We elaborated on the Seder of the Aser Dibris, pointing out that everything basically is an extension of Anochi and Le'ir Lecha, and then finally Sachman is dealing with Ben Adam Lechaveiroi in the simplest sense. So that was L'cher why, right after the two Harchavos of Anochi Le'ir Lecha, the end of Pashas Yisrael, he starts with Elam Mishpatim, which is Le'sachman. That's one thing we pointed out. But then we ended with something else, and that is actually the Rabbeinu Yoina, which points out that even to understand Anochi Le'ir Lecha, you also need Elam Mishpatim Dafke. So that also, in one way, in a certain way, is an extension, understanding of what Anochi Le'ir Lecha is. I want to read the Rabbeinu Yoina again and try to explain what this means. So the Rabbeinu Yoina is in your source Vav, page 5. Source Vav, that's where we're up to. The Mishnah in Av says, Moshe Kibbutz Sinai, U'Masar L'Yoshua, Yoshua L'Skenim, Skenim, Nevi'im, Nevi'im, Masar L'Anshik Nesag Daila. Hey, members, Shlesh Dvarim, have a Masunim Bedin, Hamidu Tamidu Haba, Vasu Sag B'Torah. So first and foremost, they opened up the idea that when we're Isaac in Din, we should do it, cautiously. So obviously the question is, why is this like the major statement? Why was it so important to deal with this idea of Masunim Bedin? So here's where Rabbeinu Yoina writes, midway down the page, which is after it, under that quote, you'll see which line is it from the bottom going up. It'll be easier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13 lines from the bottom of that source going up. Pasuk is Bahamosh Hayisi Imcha, and then there's this period such V'atam. V'atam al Sha'amar Havu Masunim Bedin. Why is it that he focuses on Mesinas Bedin? Kei Lahaski Yoser al Adinim Misha Heroes. Point out the importance that we have to be very much more cautious and wary about dinim more than other piskei halachas. Why? She'em ikar gadol b'yidiyas Hashem, because they are a primary source of understanding a Kadosh Baruch Hu. B'yidiyasa yizborach. What does that mean? Yizba v'kmay shama Yirmiyahu haskel v'yedeh oisi, become knowledgeable and know me. Ki ani Hashem oev chesed mishvur tzedakah ba'aretz. Who is the God that you're supposed to know? The God that loves chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah ba'aretz. Ki be'elech hafasi, because this is what I really want, Neum Hashem. State in pasuk is, how do you get to know God? By understanding the chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah that does ba'aretz, and through that you get to know HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So he continues, ve'ech yaskil odom ladasat Hashem. When the Navi says you're supposed to know God, how are you supposed to know Him? You can't really know Him. He's beyond comprehension. But what do we know? That's what the pasuk says. We have to be able to do din and mishpat. Why? Ki Hashem oseh eileh. God does this, and somehow through that you will know God. It means to say, if you do what He does, you will get to know Him. Now, what does that mean? It's good for mimicking Him, but how do you get to know Him? So we'll see what he says in 2 minutes. Din ani ve'evyoin as taiv halo hi hadas osin Hashem. That's a pasuk. Uksi b'mokem acher pasuk emichu ma Hashem doresh v'mcha ki masois mishvur avas chesed. Once again, so God is focusing on the idea, what does God want for you to do? Mishpat. What does that mean? There's so much more to do. Ki adinim shevish gadol la'Torah. Dinim, we mean literally choshem mishpat. U'me'em nishtas ha'olam. Everything that we learned in Pashas Mishpatim. U'kma shamar b'medrash ksiv l'fnei aseres hadibros shoftu ha'am b'chal eis. Yisrael starts with Pashas Shoftim. Yisrael basically teaches Moshe how to set up a system of jurisprudence. Uksiv la'achas says that it was ve'elam mishpatim. So somehow this has not been a mistake. So the Medrash continues. He quotes the Medrash. What does it say? Mashal matronisa. This is a metaphor for a madam, a noble lady. She'oisa alechas barderech. She was probably sitting in her litter, being carried. Okay? And her armed servants go in front of her and going back of her. So this is basically that which protects her, the way she presents herself. If we look at God as the madam in the litter, that which is before him, and afterwards is mishpatim. What does this mean? This is the tzura, the way he presents himself. This is the way when you see him in the street, that's what he looks like. What does this mean here? What is this idea behind it? Now we have a similar idea found also in Rashi and Yuma. In quote number 7, Zayin, Achash riba kosu amid lepirsh my riba my mid mi'atale mosron ela lizboinimba esa emes v'esa yosha. So steht in Rashi that when we have things in the Torah, halachas in the Torah, at the end of the day, where were they given? They were given to you to look into them, to contemplate them. It's not enough just to see the halachas. Basically, in the halachas, you have to see the values called emes and yosher. Here we're beginning to see something. And I'll explain myself, because basically, when you want to know a person, what do you know about people? Nothing. Okay, it's the honest truth, okay? The best you can know about a person is basically his or her value system, and therefore how he or she reacts to certain situations. Then you can decide whether that value system and those interactions are compatible with you. Do you respect them? And hypothetically, can that type of interactive persona be your companion? What's found in the neshama shenasat b'Torah, you don't know. The person herself or himself also doesn't know. I still remember I was a young manchik, so the Baba Sali, Zechon Levacha, he bought an apartment next to Torah Or. My koila was on the second floor of Torah Or, that's where his koila was. So I went one day, it was next door, so I went to see what it was like. So these two Belzer Hasidim go there, they're staying there, and they ask him they want to know the root of their neshama. That's cool. You want to go to the Sherish HaNeshama. So the Baba Sali said, listen, go learn Gemara, you'll find it out later. The rest you'll worry about some other time. Okay, I remember these things. So we talk about, you know what I mean? We're talking about, what do you have, you will never know your Sherish HaNeshama.
Why isn't that considered knowing a person?
I'm not sure what the word considered means. And see, when you say considered, you mean by what? I'm not sure. There's no pasuk on knowing a person. I'm not sure. What do you mean? What do you say when you say you know me? What do you know? Nothing. What the most can you know? My interactive persona in a very limited fashion is how much as I know you. Hopefully, that's why you wouldn't marry me. Okay? But when you're going to meet someone that you're really going to want to marry, you're going to also have to understand what her value system is and also how she interacts with that value system. Because if not, you simply won't be compatible. You plan to be with this person for the rest of your life, hopefully. Well, you better figure out whether she can be your companion, whether you're compatible, and whether you have mutual respect. Those are probably the three most important ingredients of marriage. CRC, like Chicago Rabbinical Council, Jay's Potato Chips. Okay, so it's compatibility, respect, and companionship. That's basically what it boils down to be. Okay, that you can, the most you can. How do you test that? Only to the extent of that interactive persona equals. Actions and interactions are based on values, on perceptions. It's how you see things which creates what you interact with. Okay, you're afraid of something because you perceive it as endangering or whatever it be. You're cynical of something because you see it as stupid, okay? You see things in certain ways. Now, some people see there's no objective reality, it's subjective. So what's the world you're living in? Therefore, that's how you react with it. So what can you know about a person? What's her or his world equals what is his value system, and what is the reactions that are generated by that understanding or internalization of that value system. That's the best you can know. That's what we call human knowledge. More than that, you can't know. The greatest psychologist tries to do that. Now, you really think by eating spaghetti for 6 months and giggling and doing ice skating, that's meaningless. It's wasted time and money and effort, especially if she tells you no after 4 months. You wasted. It's a pretty bad investment. personally. You have to think of more of a economization of time. You focus. Okay, listen, lady, we got 15 dates. Who are you? Now start spilling it out, man. I'll tell you who I am. A, B, C, and D. These are my faults. This is my strength. I'm a jerk. This is the way it is. You like it? Good. No, goodbye. This is the end result after the 12 to 15 dates. Okay. You know, basically, if you do 2 dates a week, 7 weeks, then it's done. Okay. And you don't have to pay the spaghetti because those kind of conversations, believe me, you don't do ice skating with. Okay. I'm giving you a good way to date. That's what I did. No, me took much longer though. At the end of the day, my children, that's what happened. You know, happily married. Okay, very focused dating. Why? Because they understood I have to know who this person is. I'm not interested in a good time. Good times are shtiyot. Okay, they're totally meaningless. Okay, marriage isn't good. Most life is not a good time in marriage anyway. It's compatibility, companionship, and respect. So whether, you know, Yankee games don't do it. Okay, and ice skating in Lincoln, in Rockefeller Center over there in the rink doesn't do it. Believe me, and paragliding over there in the Everglades doesn't do it. Okay, get it straight. Disney World is the last place you go. Okay, you got to get straight. You know, you sit down. Rachel Bitzchak, you learn her like you learn the Rashba. She learns you like you learn the Tosfos Reed, and then you get to somewhere. Tosfos Reed is harder. Give you some solid advice, okay, Bloom? Remember that. Don't waste your time. I can tell you horror stories of people that dated for 6, 7 months, and then they were married. After 3 months, they got divorced because they didn't really know who they were marrying. They were walking around meeting projected images and giggling together. They had a good time. But he projected image X and she projected image Y. But when he finally, when the mascara came off, you know, when the game's over, that's you? Like, they didn't bother knowing what's the real person. So he said, what's considered knowing, believe me, take some advice from a war horse. I mean, me, it took a year, but that's for other reasons. But Lamaisa, it was focused. Everything's focused. You know, like a Tosfos. That's the way it's supposed to be. If not, you're wasting your time. Right. So how do you get to know God? The most you can know about God is his value system. You don't have a clue about God. You don't know what you are. You don't know what God is. When I sit with a person, that's when I say I. What does I mean? I think it's very perturbing. Okay, you say I like spaghetti. What does I mean? Define the I, please. Your body. That's the I. Let me tell you. You gain weight. You lose weight. You have an arm. You have less an arm. You're some different person. Do you need new kedushin when you add a pound? When you add a pound? Okay. How does it work? It's obviously not the body. Is it your psychological profile? Hate to say it. Get married. You see with women, it goes up and down like a thermometer. Or rather, you know what I mean? She got a blue day and a green day and a purple day, depending on the clothes you wear. Okay? And let me tell you, so what it means, the kedushin is chatzoyin. How does it work? If you think, hopefully you also develop and change your personality. I'm praying for you, okay? Some of you hopefully will grow. Does that mean you need a new kinyanim with your wife? So you'd have to think of it. You know, people don't think. I want, what does I mean? You know, so I suggest you call it the X factor, okay? I equals X factor loves. Is that true? Cool. So you'll never know what X factor is. I can give you a long dissertation on what it means, but this is not the place because you don't live in that consciousness. There is an I, and I must be something which is consistent and go through phases and expressions. If not, you'd have to have eyes which change every morning, and therefore you'd have to, then the word, no one sees himself that way. We all see ourselves as I, which was X, and now I'm Y. I was happy, now I'm sad. We see these as phases, but there's a constant. What exactly is constant in your existence? Outside of the metaphysical X factor called neshama, there's nothing constant. Your thoughts change, your personality changes. What's the you? You are a nice person at this stage of the game. You will be a jerk in 2 weeks. Okay, so what happens? So who's the I? So are you going to say, well, there was an IX and now there's an IY. That's cool. Does society, does language accept that way? Do we see you as different people? Or do we say you're in a different phase of reality? No one says you're a different person. No system of jurisprudence will see it that way. It's always going to see there's a constant you from the day you popped out of your mom's womb until they put you there into the hole in the ground. There's a constant you which went through phases. So you have to define your I. It's a very important thing to do. If you define it, then next time when you say L'kai neshamash and satvi Torah, you understand who you're talking about. Okay, that's actually the only constant which you have. Just by the way. So when's the last time you thought of I, my neshama, which expresses itself in my goof, in my interactive persona, etc. So well, don't look for that in your wife because you won't find it. She doesn't know it either, okay? Your neshama, I mean my soulmate. People think that soul is nothing more than the emotional persona. It's got nothing to do with the word soul, right? Your soul doesn't like music. I think I once told you this. I had a student that I told her once a certain idea. She says, Rabbi, that can't be true. And I said, why? Because her soul told her so. So I asked her if she speaks, if the soul speaks French, and does it talk to her often? You know what I mean? Like, oh God, I had a party then. Okay, your soul spoke to you, Morgan Yom Kippur. Your soul didn't speak to you. I mean, your nervous system, which is generated by who knows what, including your supper, spoke to you. Something else. Did I understand? I suggest you take antacids. You know what I mean? Speak to you, your soul spoke to you, like soul-stirring music. God knows. What does that mean? The soul stirs. I didn't know it his place, and it moves. Very nice to know. Okay, so your soul stir. Okay, and all these are childish words, which really you say X, you mean Y. Okay, shirei neshama and shirim shel neshama. Yesh shirim shemorim regeshot. Okay, yesh regeshot chiyuviyim, yesh regeshot shliliyim. I think when you go to a disco and they have the news, the smoke and the lights and all that, it's also shirei regesh. It's gairim certain regoshes, maybe more my animalistic regoshes. I could regoshes. Who says that regesh means cute little things? Maybe it also means you know, like, and you look like Attila the Hun. It's also a regesh. Gemina and the Yitzhak Levad Rabban Urav isn't a regesh. Translate the word regesh. Very simple, okay? It's got nothing to do with, so you see the regesh. Oh yeah, that's a thing for music. Regesh, discs, right? Regesh. Yeah, but they understand. It's a joke because people are using words not in context. Ani mitragesh mima. I killed somebody. I really feel good about it. Hitragashti. So this, I'm sure that Al Capone got mitragesh. Okay, when these are benign words. And the result, if you speak exact language you understand, you know nobody. The best you know is the interactive persona. And therefore, what you're really looking for is not the interaction, but what causes the interaction equals the value system and the internalization of those values, which causes the person to interact. As I've told many times, people don't have emotional reactions just from cerebral realities. It's that which is internalized. So it's a value system, and you act or react to it. That means it's internalized. We have a lot of values of A, B, C, without going into it. But the fact is, lo mazizotcha, lo ava, v'lo yira, nothing. Why? Because you know it's up in the air. That's not a real value system. You all believe in a lot of things. I told you a million times. I believe is a cheap word. It's I know. It's I've internalized. That's when you hit pay dirt. Beforehand, it's cheap. Everyone believes. So does the Schwarzer, which afterwards kills me, that lives on Ostrand Avenue. I believe. You go to the typical charismatic church, they all say, I believe. Was meint das? And afterwards he'll get drunk and he'll shoot and he'll do, but he believes in the Holy Savior, right? And he'll speak in tongues and go to the charismatic church. It's like a Karniner Stiebel, and they'll scream and they'll dance. But was meint das? It's like all these guys have these cute little tishes, and then what do they afterwards? And then they go out with their girlfriend and lav dafke mekayim, all the mitzvahs of the Torah there. You know what I mean? They have this Hasidic event, tishim, you know, tznius, gimel averes chamuris, v'chulu la zachap, garnishment, weiter garnish. This has nothing to do with Judaism. You have to understand. So what do you know? From those mitzvahs, you know God's values. You see, when you look at Rashi says, God wants you to look at the mitzvahs, not just to see the mitzvahs, but through the laws to understand what are truths and what is straightforward. Straightforward is a value system. What does yashar mean? Do things straight. Be honest, straightforward. I still remember it was once as a younger man. I went to visit Rabban Soloveitchik. They could tell you the bracha was a shiva in Chicago. I was from Chicago, and so I came from Israel. And there was then talk about a certain personality, without going where, somewhere in America, which, whatever happened. Nebuch, he did great things, good things, but he also, Nebuch got caught, he embezzled major funds from the American government, and he was sitting in the clink. He fell literally from a post of leadership in Klal Yisrael to Mamish, one of the never torn apart. So, the people, they were talking about him at the table. So I said, listen, remember, he did some great things. He's a very, he's a frum person. He did good things. So Rabban got all angry, and he says, you should know. In Yiddish, he said, the Galach soll sein frum, a Yid darf sein ehrlich. Let the priest be frum. A Jew has to be honest and straightforward. If the chesorna yashris, that's the chesorna of you as a Jew. You can put a couple shmoyne tzitzis with all the mice with chayser yashris. That's your mufka. Remember, you said that he was like woo, okay. And that's what he says here. You have to know the emes and the yashar. Rashi says that the ikar mitzvah is to be bizbayin and to see in the emes and the yashar. A person which doesn't look for the emes and the yashar in the value system of the mitzvahs and the mishpatim, he's missing the boat. He's pashit missing the boat. So here again to read, it says in the portion of this Rashi comes from a pasuk in source Ches. Pasuk says, "V'hayim le'sishma b'koil Hashem Elokecha lishmar v'la'asais es kol mitzvaysav chukaysav asher aneichim mitzavcha yom u'bo alecha kol ha'klos eila yisigucha." You look at this carefully. One of the klalos in lo sishma b'koil Hashem. Lishmor v'la'asot et kol mitzvotav v'chukotav. Let's try to translate the pasuk. You will not listen. Bikol means what? You will not heed. Listen to the voice of God, to heed and to do His commandments. So what is the first thing you're not doing? What's the first thing you're not listening to? You're not hearing the voice. You're not adhering to the voice, which is the voice by now. What are you doing? Let's look at the next pasuk. Now, when it says big coil, what does it mean? So the very interesting pasuk in Shmais, look at source Tes. It says over there by Parshas, in the story of Morah. So it says, "Vayitzak el Hashem v'yireu Hashem eitz v'yashech al hamayim v'yimtuk hamayim sham sam leichok u'mishpat v'sham niso." That's in Mori. He gave him chayk and mishpat, and there he proved him whether he's roy from Matan Torah. Look the next passage. Vayomer, and God said to the Jews, "Im shemaya tishma likoil Hashem elokecha." Once again, it doesn't say koil Hashem elokecha. Likoil Hashem elokecha. Vayoshe be'einav taseh. Va'azanta limitzvaysev. That means va'azanta limitzvaysev. I understand va'azanta to him to lishmar mitzvaysev. What does it mean va'azanta limitzvaysev and lishmar likoil Hashem? It's very clear. It was v'shamata kol chukav kol ha'machalosh. It's not mitzvayim li'osim alech ani avaya rifecha. So the Ibn Ezra writes immediately. Look at pasuk chavav Ibn Ezra. Vayomer tishmeh tishma kva hiskarti ki kol shmiya shacharei lamed oibeis kimay lishmaya hadavar. So either bikoil Hashem, when it says lishmaya likoil or bikoil, in other words. This goes back to the two psukim we saw before in Dvarim Chav Ches, where it said Tishma Bikoil or Shamata Bikoil, and here it says Tishma Likoil. So he says Kol Shemir Shacharei Lamed or Beis, a Lamed before the coil or the Beis before the coil. Ein Pirusho Lishma Davar. It doesn't mean to listen to what the man has to say. Rak Lahavin Tam Ha'inyan Hanoseh Davar. It means to look into the depth of it and to understand it. Listen to what it has to say, not to listen to it, but listen to what it has to say. What's the music behind this? What's the value system behind this? What does this represent? You must understand what he commands. It means not just basically to do the mitzvahs, but to understand what he's commanding and do that which is just and right in his eyes. Now, what does this mean to lisbonein? So the Ramban, basically, the follow-up source, Chavav, elaborates and explains this. Just look at the Ramban. He's quoting the same Ibn Ezra. Understand the reason why he's commanding this. Vayoshe bein of tase mitzvot aseh. V'izantel mitzvaysev mitzvos loisaseh. Ubemechil to amru. Vayoshe bein of tase. What does that mean? Masu umatan. Your business ethics. Now that doesn't mean not to be choshish for an aveira. That's not vazantel mitzvaysev. That's a davar pashut. There's initially sigzol, etc. It means to say, but there's what you call the gray area of reality where there's no aveira, but you're not honest. You're not ehrlich. So he says, Masu, what is Masu Matan? A moral, ethical businessman, very hard to find. He who does things with total trust. Emunah here doesn't mean belief in God, it means in total trust. You're a trustworthy person. A word is a word, a commitment is a commitment. What you said is what you mean is what you said. Totally opposite of normal business norms, the way we know them in the real business world. Okay? Ruach Abriya Shanaichem, and therefore people actually like him. Usually a businessman, you do business, someone's going to hate you. The only question is how many, okay? But no, you're an honest businessman, therefore people all like you. Because your word is a word. Literally, hin shechat tzedek v'lav shechat tzedek. That's the mitzvah priyas bal chayv mitzvah. So what does the Rishonim say? What the Gemara says? What's the mitzvah priyas bal chayv? Because it says hin tzedek, efa tzedek yirlecha. Those are measurements. So he says hin also means for the word yes. Hin, hein, lav. Shahen shechayet tzedek v'lav shechayet. So your word should be a word. That's the mitzvah of paying a debt. The mitzvah of paying debt, not because, according to that sheet in the Gemara, is not because, so to speak, if you don't pay, you're a gazlan, because you're not honest. Your word's not a word. You made a commitment. You didn't fulfill it. I made a commitment to my parents that I'm going to do this and this and this. A guy came to ask me recently, is Talmud Torah more important? I mean, it could be more important. Hen shchat tzadik. Tzadik, what are you talking about? Is Talmud Torah derech gezel? It's a mitzvah that says, hen shechat tzedek. How can you possibly renege on a commitment to your parents because you want to learn Torah? Whoever heard of such a thing? If the father tells you, don't learn Torah, so you have a mitzvah, so he can't tell it to you because there's a mitzvah to learn Torah. But if you made a commitment, and you said, I'm going to go home, do this, I'm going to do that, this is hen shechat tzedek. How can you possibly renege on a commitment? It's an aveira chamura. It's the opposite. Vasisas hayasher is that type. God's not interested in that type of Talmud Torah. If it's not yasher, it's not toiv. I want to put this on the table. Okay, one has to understand that. So he says, "Zeh masu umated melame shekol ha'neisim ha'neisim be'amunah v'ruach habris neichim malav ha'kasav kilu kiyam kol ha'torah kula." Why? Because he understands what the Torah is about. It's not just about doing and not doing. It's about value systems, which you're supposed to take out of those mitzvahs and understand what the values are, and therefore live according to that, even in the gray area. V'oda va'er, the Raman continues, says, I will explain this b'hagiba pasuk when I get to the pasuk v'eschana of Sisas hayosher v'satoif im yetiv im yakel b'toif. We're looking at this carefully. We're looking at, the mishpatim are not just to know Baba Kama. Above Mitzvah Ba'abasa. It's the value system behind Baba Kama, above Mitzvah Ba'abasa that you're supposed to internalize and apply it in places where there's no offensive in Shulchan Aruch. It's as simple as that. Okay, where is this Ramban? The Ramban sends to Yeshua the type, so let's see what the Ramban writes on Yeshua the type. That's source Yud. Ramban, the Pasuk says, Shemor tishmarun is mitzvot Hashem alekechem v'edosav chukav aksher tzivcha. Should heed these mitzvahs. So it doesn't just mean to fulfill them. It means more. Vasisa hayasher hatov b'einei Hashem. If you heed the mitzvahs, then you will not just do the mitzvahs, you do that which is subjectively good and straightforward in the eyes of God. Now, what does that mean, good and straightforward in the eyes of God? That means just fulfilling the halacha. So the Ramban writes, Al derech hapshat, yomar tishmeru mitzvot Hashem ve'edotav And when you do it, when you fulfill these mitzvahs, here we're talking about do it with the understanding that what? That you're doing that which is good, and yasher be'einav. You don't care about anybody else. So I'm doing these mitzvahs because these are the things I'm supposed to do and not care about others. That's how he says lechatchil. But then he continues, L'man yitav lecha avtacha, yomaki basotcha tov be'inav yitav lecha. Ki Hashem meitiv v'atovim v'yisharim b'libotam. If you do that which is tov b'nei Hashem, you became a good person, then God is meitiv the person which is good. U'rabuseinu b'zeh medrash yafeh. What do they say? Zub shara v'lifnim b'shur sadin. Tov v'yasher doesn't mean the din, it means adra, but compromise or lifnim b'shur sadin. What does that mean? More than, outside of the realm of strict judgment. What does it mean? How are you governed? So he explains. Hakavana bazeh, what does this mean? Ki mitchila amar shitishmachu kavu mishpat ve'edosav asher tzivcha. First tells us, listen, you have to do the law. V'ato, now he says, there's more than that. Gam ba'asher lo tzivcha, when there's no explicit sif in Shulchan Aruch. Ten da'atcha lasot atov v'ayosher be'einov. Ki yu oev atov v'ayosher. First and foremost, do your din. But then, let's say, many times we have gray area. Oh yeah, in life, unbelievable. In the world of business, there's a lot of gray area. What we call, instinct today, there's a concept of business ethics. Most of it is simply Sifrin Shulchan Aruch. That's not business ethics, that's business law. Medical ethics. I've yet to see Jewish medical ethics. All I've seen, all the articles on Jewish medical ethics are nothing but the Jewish medical law. And law and ethics have nothing to do with each other. There are two issues. A law is an imperative, and an ethic is a judgment call. Because ethics change with society. Okay, what's an ethic? An ethic is something which you don't see as an imperative. No one puts you in jail for it. But it's what you call an imperative conscience. There's no system. Well, these are, but it's not imperative conscience. And that's a din. So no one says that not stealing is lack of ethics. It's a question, that's a law. Medical ethics should be dealing with ethical problems which at the moment have not been legislated. So in all truth, when I look at where medical ethics, overwhelmingly, most of the things I've seen, articles I've seen and lectures I've heard, are doing nothing with Jewish law, which are applied to medicine. You can also do shchita, you say slaughtering ethics, you want to call it that way. There's no difference between that and putting on film. You're going to call that an ethic. You can call it an ethic if you want, unless obviously we have a different concept of the word ethics. So that's by the way. Okay, but you know what it is, you need parnasa, so they call it Jewish medical ethics. It's also good. Okay, but at the end of the day, what's he saying? He's saying, no, there is what's called the law, and then you have to be able to extrapolate from the law the values to understand what does this represent. For example, there's no question a person who learns Baba Basra understands the importance that Torah values give to privacy, not infringing on people's privacy. Now, that's not a sufficient, there's no gezel there. Hezek Riyah, literally, it's not a din deraisa. Rambam writes in the Akdav Mishnah, it's all of Baba Basra, there's no pasuk for any of it. It's all Yasher v'Tov. Chazal extracted from the dinim which are chayiv and pater into values which should also ethics which they decide to make takanas for and to legislate these ethics. And now they became imperatives d'rabbanim, but d'oraisa they're not law, they're ethics. You're not overly sigza when you peek into someone else's courtyard, but you know what? But we hold hezek riyah shmei hezek and we force you to build a wall. But that's very rabbinic, not biblical. What we're doing is we've legislated some of these ethics, but first we have to know what they are. Where did they get it from? They understood all the derivations of Chesed Mishpat and realized there's values there, which one will include kavod ha'adam and his privacy. How exactly they extracted it, this is not the place to discuss, but that's what you see. That's what happened in Baba Basra. You learn more and more and more about Baba Kama, you realize the importance of not damaging, being careful with other people's property. Believe me, with the common behavior of taking using business time or business lines to make private phone calls, take a little extra paper there or even a paper clip. If you'd learn Baba Kama, you know din pruta, you didn't meya, and the Isser Gezel, even on Pasuk Sheva Pruta. So the fact that the head of the department says it's okay, who's not the Bailim, he's your Gazlan. Unless you decide it's Anasadi that they're totally giving you as a matana. Ask the president, they'll tell you, no way, Charlie. What do you mean? But the head of the department doesn't care. Who's he? He's a bucket. He's a goslin. You're a goslin. That means you didn't learn Baba Kama. You would have learned Baba Kama. You would have had understood. That's what it does to you. It gives you certain understandings. Then you understand more than that. It's called Yasher V'Tov. Here I'm talking about Shlitt and Shulchan Aruch. We're over Meisim B'chol Yom in the office. And that's mamish the shens to Eden. Meisim b'chol yom there's gzelis b'li sof, b'li shum safek. Okay, mamash gezer. There's not even a fake here. Elamay vaz blai, but there's worse than that. There's also yosher v'toiv. When you understand the Al-Kosh Baruch Hu's makbid on the prut and on this, you understand. Be careful. And that's what he writes here. Zot the Ramban v'zei yan gadol. Torah can't write down, legislate every point where you meet your neighbors and your friends how to act. We can't legislate every aspect of people's business. We don't expect, the Torah doesn't write explicitly how to set up a society, an urban society that we can live together, like Baba Basra does. Teaches you laws of how to live together. It doesn't say that. Torah doesn't do that. Torah doesn't go into the nitty-gritty of day-to-day drudge. She has basic halachas. Aval. Torah writes down a lot of laws. Keep going. He gives an example. Lo telech rachil. O lo tikom v'lo titor. Lo tamod adam re'echa. I'm giving you small, broad halachas, okay? Lo tikalach cheresh. So he gave you broad halachas. Now what you do is you look into the halachas, you learn them in depth, you see their scope, you conceptualize them into principles. And then once you have a broad enough scope, you can conceptualize them into halachic principles, meta-halachic principles, ultimately into the philosophical underpinnings of those principles. And then all of a sudden you have what's called values. But that's a job to be done. You can't do it unless you first know how to conceptualize and have the scope enough to conceptualize it all into a meta-halachic principle. And then you could possibly see different halachas all bunched together, different aspects of the same principle. And it's a meta-halachic principle. For that, you have to know ashtikul asach. Okay? Finally, is once you have those principles, now you're supposed to distill them into what you call philosophical underpinnings, values. And then you've distilled the law you made it into a good whiskey. You've distilled it into what's the value system behind it all. And that's what God wants. And that's called Yosher V'Tov. That's what the Ramban writes. So the Ramban, Chazer Leimer B'derech Klal, Sheyasa Atov Ve'Yosher B'chol Davar. After you learned all the pratim, now understand, now figure out what it is. Yashem b'chol davar. Achi hikanis b'zeh, this will include pshara, which is compromise. Anybody understanding dinim of gezel, of all the different halachas will understand that means to say that if I have a litigation, I should be looking for compromising. Why? There's multitudes of values there. One great value is called shalom. The Baka of Shar, because it's Emerson Mishpat Shalom Shifta B'Shareichem. Ezu Mishpat Sheyeshi My Shalom, so the Gemara have Eimer Zap Shar. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin Hamid base. It's not enough to have strict law. We want to have a society which functions. We have to have harmony in society. And there's a value there. We have to distill a lot of Gemaras to get to that principle that God wants peace. Don't tell me because, say Shalom Bim we say Shalom Aleinu. That's for the birds, okay? We're talking about, you have to understand it from Shulchan Aruch. Okay? As I said today, you give me a little pasuk, a little medrash, from that you don't create Yiddishkeit. Unless you know all that. Okay? We discussed this in the previous class. So the same thing here. So pshara, v'lifnim mishur sadin. Ukigoyin mashi iskir b'dinir bar metzra. Here's an example. The fact means that I'm selling something and there's someone that lives next to me. So he has the first rights to acquire this. It's not a pasuk in Chumash. It's Yosher V'Tov. It's the right thing to do. It's called menschlichkeit, but this menschlichkeit comes from after we know the laws, we figure out which mensch. Not every subjective menschlichkeit of every society is what we call yasher or toiv. It has to be yasher or toiv בעיני Hashem. How do you know what's yasher or toiv בעיני Hashem? After you distilled his laws, you understand his values, you understand what's yasher or toiv בעיניו. The fact that yasher or toiv בעיניך, or בעיני, I don't know what, John, Barry, or Harry, that's not what we're talking about. So he says, "Afilu sheyamru amru pirkei noah v'diburei nachasim abrius." The fact that a person pirkei noah, that means he has a clean slate. A person tries to live a life without aberrations. Or diburei nachasim abrius. He speaks softly with people. He's a sociable. Being a sociable person, speaking softly, menschlich. That is part of yasher v'toiv. Now, which pasuk does that come from? Well, you got a principle. A lot of it's going to obviously it's going to go from dinei sheker leistech rachav afracha kamoicha, and you have to think all those halachas together, pile them. You're going to create a big principle, and the principle will then be applied there. So you really have to know tons, but that's what they're telling you to do. Va'azanta. So when the pasuk said im tishma b'kol Hashem, doesn't mean listen to the mitzvahs. Listen to the voice of the mitzvahs. In Ve'azanta tishma l'koil Hashem l'kech, what Ibn Ezra is saying, what the Ramban say, listen to what it has to say. Okay, this is found over here also. Now the parallel to that is another Ramban. The Ramban says on the pasuk in source Yudav, Daber al kol das bnei Yisrael matam kedoshim tiyu ki kodesh ani Hashem l'kechem. So what does it mean kedoshim tiyu? So flip the page if you don't mind. In the second paragraph, it says, Kedoshim Tiyu, it brings Rashi, V'prushim min ha'arayis min ha'avera. Stam avera means sexual realities. When we say stam avera, Porush min ha'avera, we mean sexual realities. Like when it says, Barasi Yetzirah, Barasi Torah Tavlin, it doesnn't mean the Yetzirah for Lashon Hara. That Yetzirah means Lashon Hara of sexuality. You should know Stam, Lashon Chazal. I mentioned that last week, that idea. So that's Rashi says Kedoshim Tiyu means prushim min ha'arayis. Okay, be careful when it comes to sexual realities. But then the Ramban says in the third paragraph, Lefi da'ati ein ha'prishuta zeh lifrosh min ha'arayis k'divei Rav. That's not what Kedoshim Tiyu means. Ava prishuti ha'musket b'chol makom b'Talmud sheba'alei nikrim prushim. What does that mean? People who are parush. Parush means they are separated. They're transcendent. They're separated. What does this mean? So the Ramban explains, Va'inyan, the idea behind this is, Ki ha'Torah yizira, Torah has commanded us, arayis, machos, asuras, al hitira, bia b'ish b'ishtoi, va'achilas basa v'yayin, im ken yimatzei bal taiva makam, so you can be a very frum bal taiva, to be totally shut of b'zimus ishta, you can be a rooster with your wife 24/7. You can be living totally in the bedroom. Okay? Do you ever have these very frum people, but somehow they act in their houses as if they're in I don't know where. They dress however they dress, they act however they act, and then in their private life, they're bali taiva shtufim bezima. But it's mutter, she's not a nida, and Baruch Hashem, she's my wife. Afal pikein, that's what we're talking about. So you can be a big frummer Jew and be shut of be'erva. Or for example, these weddings where these yeshiva bachrim suddenly open up a bottle and then they look like they're in a bar. They never don't feel comfortable going to a bar, so people get married. They make the bar there. Okay? This is called Zoyle Basa V'Seiva Yayin. Did you ever see people at weddings, what they look like? It almost looks as if their faces are stuck to the plate, and it looks like the Pasuk Chumash, Basa Ben Shineim. It's falling about, and that's what they look like. Okay, what's that? It's fish, it's not kosher, it's OU. I still remember, I'll never forget. I once went to America, I was stuck there for Purim, I opened up a newspaper. There was a nightclub in the village where it had an OU hechsher, and there was going to be a Purim party in the nightclub with whatever attractions, lav dafka fitting with Shulchan Aruch, to say the least. Okay? But it was kosher, and I'm sure the place was packed. It was very nice, it was all kosher alpidin. It was one big priestess in Shkot Sarai, she'en kedugmasai. What's this? This is what the Ramban says. This is Anshe Zima and Zoyle Basa V'Yayin. It's all kosher. It's like the suit of Achashverosh. It had a good Achsherim. But if you understand the behavior there, take the behavior pattern. So how Achashverosh wanted to celebrate his wife's presents. I imagine that was the Tzuras Asuda B'chlal of that Persian feast. It was a Roman orgy. Okay, and then the Mesudas Russia, of course, it was kosher. It's an ish ish. There was no coercion. You want a badatz, you get badatz. You want OU, you get OU. But the Zayle Basav V'Seive Yain, the Prutzim Ba'aroyas, that's going to be there. It's going to be al pidin. You know what I mean? But you know what din? It's going to be morally, ethically decayed. So that's what he writes. We have that a lot today in the northern hemisphere. There's no pasuk says that you can't talk crass. Give me the pasuk. Which lav is it? There is no lav. Talk like a street man. You know what I mean? The whole works like a rapper. You know what I mean? No, but doesn't say you can't be, stuff your face with food and drink wine all day. Doesn't say you can't have kosher sex all day. There was a book, Bishmuli B'Teich, I think it was Kosher Sex. He was a rabbi at the time of the Oxford Club. Ex-Chabatska, he was excommunicated, whatever it be. So I remember he wrote about kosher sex. You understand? The idea of that being a topic, that you talk barabim, is the goof of the uvda. This is something which is anti the musig of Kedoshim Tiyu. Kedoshim Tiyu means you're a refined person. You are restricted. You are transcendent. You talk of things in a certain way, in a certain how and what and where. You behave in a certain way. Not talking every nevolah. No pasuk. You can't talk about nevolas. Doesn't say anywhere. What would be called hu ye novel b'shus haTorah? That because you will be a novel b'shus haTorah. Lefichach ba katuv achrei shipireta yisurim she'asar otam legamra. After the Torah elaborated the yisurim restrictions, which are definitely restricted, he's explicit. Isha bita is asur, achis isha is asur, treifus is asur, od is asur. Tziva b'davar klal. He gave you broad principles. Sheniya prushim min hamoiseros. We should be separated from things which are more than what we normally need. Now, that's a subjective term, right? But looking for more than what is needed is something we should be walking away from. It's as simple as that. Now, what is needed, that's a psychological reality which will depend. Moisture doesn't just mean luxuries of buying, a Schaffhausen, Lav Davka, or getting yourself a Lexus. For certain people, maybe that's what they need. I'm not going into the psychological reality. They should be able to develop. It shouldn't have to be that way, but that's where they are at this stage of the game. So no one's telling you to live in a hovel of a room and a quarter in Mayashur. I don't think you'll make it. You'll probably collapse, okay? But you know what I mean? Let's just say one has to start looking at reality, what is important, what is not important. Has to start living life according to what values are. Slowly but surely, it takes time to get there. Maybe by the time you're on the end of the rope, maybe you get closer to where things are, but that's very subjective. It's a mitzvah, k'toshim tiyu sheniya prushim min ha'maisros. What does that mean? You might b'mishgal. It means that, of course, you can have sex with your wife, but you know what? Relax. Don't be a rooster. Do it for the purpose it's there for, and not just to be partying all day. Literally, you're not supposed to be a rooster. Yeah, there's mitzvahs. I know there's mitzvah preview. There's different things, how things have to be done, but there's a seder in these things. We're not animals. And this is all part of the mitzvah saseh, kedoshim tiyu. The yikadish atzmai, he should separate himself from, transcend wine by limiting it. The nazir, which does not take in liquor, is called kadosh. He's a separated person. Think of the terrible things that the Torah describes that happens with wine. For example, noyach, or light. That's how you're supposed to live. So when I see these yeshiva things at weddings with the getting themselves not half drunk, they're pushing prost the behemoths. It's about tashchus on the air that they breathe. This is often a bittul mitzvah aseh k'doshim tiyu. And it's worse, because the Avera Prat, this is just a Maisa. A Chisaron K'doshim Tiyu means your whole Gavra is mufrach. Because Kedoshim to you is not a mitzvah's ma'asis, it's a din what kind of a person you're supposed to be. Not to eat treifis is halacha nachila. To be mufresh from taivus, that's a din of the gavra. Who are you supposed to be? A person which is shakur, but taivus, he's mufrach, the gavra is mufrach. If he just eats an averis, he did a ma'aseh. It's a big difference. So you have to understand this is actually much uglier when you see people like that. They wear their hats and their jackets, but they dance as if it's a disco, and their body language says, man, I don't know where they were Saturday night, but I don't think they were doing mishmer. You okay? The way they move over there, and they get all woo-woo as soon as there's some smoke and lights over there. Where's this coming from? Either they were in a certain place, or that's where their head and heart is anyway. One of the two, okay? What does it mean? I don't care what they do. It means they're not Kedoshim to you. They're mufrach from Kedoshim to you. A mufrach from Kedoshim to you is a person which is mufrach. The gavra is off the rocks. That's what I'm talking about. So you can be very frum, but you can be a novel, but mufrach as a gavra. You're not Kedoshim to you. That's what he says. He says, V'chein yafish atzim in atuma. What does that mean? We did. There's no issue to be tamei, but you see how many dinim are there about tumah, and how the tamei can't go to the Beis Hamikdash. Now, if God thinks it's something I don't want you to be in the Beis Hamikdash, that means you're supposed to be in it. Don't you chap that this is not what He wants? He didn't legislate you don't become tamei, but I told you all the reasons why tumah is something which He doesn't like. And you don't chap, like be married. You think your wife's going to have to tell you everything? If you don't chap what her value systems are, you're not going to last long. She has to explain everything. Abrach tzemir. So he says mefurish. That's why the Gemara says the Chigir, big day Amaretz is medrus lePrushim. This big day Amaretz because they're not makbid in tumah. So a parush sees this as if it's a tumah zav. We take for granted it's tumah and he walks away from it. A parush, the Chacham, the Tanaim were called Prushim, the Chachmei Talmud at the time, because they were parush, they were Kedoshim to you people. U'kamay shenikra another kodesh b'shamrei mitumas hames gamke. V'gam yishma piva l'shaynai mi'izgoel b'ribuy achila agasa. Some freshing, you see these weddings by the Shmugger's board. Before they sit down to eat, there's a whole Roman feast before standing. And then you go this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Well, what are you doing exactly? You're gorging, okay? You're a mufka. Simple as that. You're a mufka. There's a nice ice sculpture, whatever it be. You're a mufka. You're mufrach. You're not a ben Torah. You're a vatal mitzvah to you. You're not what God expected people to be. That's all. You're what's called, according to the Ramban, novel b'reshus haTorah. You're decrepit, but you're observant. Okay? You're a decrepit, observant person. That's what you are. Next time you go to a wedding, look at people with a certain eye, you don't want to be there anymore. Okay? It's called kula. So much of these things are nevolim b'reshus haTorah, and after you suddenly get sent to it, because it disgusts you. It disgusts you. Okay, the Rambam writes when you look at a person getting drunk, think of as a person who doesn't mind walking around nude in the street. Says getting drunk is so ugly. It's like a guy decides to go walk around in his birthday suit. Okay, so next time you see these guys at these weddings, they think, please, take your pants off. It's the same thing. Okay, now how would you look at them if they were sitting around like that? What do you mean? But they come for yeshiva X and Y. They know how to say chefze gavra chalais on the hoizen. That's what this is. They're walking around without pants. That's what they are. That's what you're supposed. I see them that way. That's what you're supposed to see it that way. Because Kedoshim to you means you're supposed to see it that way. Okay? He says, Yishmer pivu is God beribi achila gasu umina dibur hanimas. How can you talk in a crass way? More to kalalma. You're a refined person. The Yeshayahu castigates people. How can you be a peh dever nevala? There's no pasuk. You know what the pasuk is? Kedoshim to you. The a person which that finally will be, you can almost become an ascetic. Okay, you just do what's important. You live really with your values. you end up not doing a lot of things which are quite stupid. The Rambam has a whole thing on Segel Chachma Shtika describing that basically that what is it? I would say that the three-fifths of speech run between stupid or osir. There's only like 2/5 which are like mutter and mitzvah. The whole list of Rambam Pirsha Mishnah Pirkei describes that. He makes the cheshbon the most diburim are you run between stupidity or osir. So the either an Isser Mefurish or the Isser K'toshim to you. On these type of values, that's what this special mitzvah K'toshim to you, which is the parallel to what he says the Yasher Tov. Do you notice? Yasher Tov is dealing with Adam L'Chaveri, that's Mishpatim. K'toshim to you is dealing with Ben Adam L'Makayim. Yasher Tov means look at Choshem Mishpat and distill it into moral, ethical, interactive persona. And then look at your Chaim, your Deya, even Evan Hazar to a certain extent, and and find Kedoshim to you. What kind of person are you supposed to be? אחרי שפיר את כל העבר שנעשו לגמרי עד שנכנס בכלל זויס הצבוע הנקיוס ביודו ובגופו, God Almighty. Do you understand the Kedosh? If you would understand Tyrus, understand how God expects us to be clean, into water, cleanse yourself, you understand that God wants you to shower, brush your teeth, live with normal hygiene. Hey, sometimes you go here in Israel in the summer, man, you go on the bus, man, you want a nose clip. You know what I mean? Some people think that showers are Averis. You don't want to say where and what. It's really... I'm not talking about V'aftracha Kamecha. Melech Zuntait. Are you prosta behemoth? K'toshim to you. K'toshim to you means you should be, brush your teeth. K'toshim to you means you should look like a mensch. You should act. That's what he writes over here. Nikiyas Yodeh V'gufay. It's unbelievable. You can walk into the shower. Hinni Mucham Zul Mekai Vitzah K'toshim to you. Pretty cool. Okay. K'moshe Amru V'yiskadashtem Eilamayim Rishayim. V'yitzim kedoshim. Now, the mayim achronim is there to clean your face and your fingers. Eila mayim achronim. Ki kodesh zeh shemen arev. They used to put some kind of a perfume after that to cleanse your part of cleansing. That's also kedusha. He brings the Gemara on this. The Gemara in Brachos. Ki afal pi she'ela mitzvahs midivrayim. There's something more than mitzvahs mayim achronim is in drabanan. Mayim rishon is in drabanan. So what's the part of kedusha? So he says, Ikar HaKosav Ki Yotz V'Yaza Sheniya Nikim V'Toirim U'Prushim Mi'amoim B'nei Adam She'em Melachlachim Atzmam B'Moisris U'B'Kiyurim. People filthy themselves physically, morally, ethically, with luxuries, etc. We're supposed to be the total opposite of that. We're supposed to be clean, bodily clean, ethically clean, living literally, lean and mean is the name of the game, as opposed to be flubby and blubby and enjoying every aspect of Olam Hazeh. V'zeh derech ha-Torah, l'freit v'lichlal. That's how the Torah writes itself. It gives, basically, it says pratim, and then it gives a broad principle. Ki achrei Azor's pirtei adinim, after the Torah gave the specifics of Allah, b'chol ma'aseh matan shebein b'nei Adam, that's the Choshem Mishpat that we learned. Le'signai, le'sigzai, le'sainu, sharas harais. Amar bichlal vasisa the Hatayv. Here's where he draws the parallel between Vasisa Yasher Hatayv and Kedoshim to you. So then once again, after you know all the halachas, then he says, just be straightforward and honest. Okay? She'ikonis be'esei hayoysher va'ashvaya. V'chol lifnim yishur sadin l'rotzen chaverev. Kasher farish b'agir l'mukayma. Here he's sending us to Vayeschanan that we already saw. So you have to understand that is the get of the halacha. Just like the Kedoshim Tiyu and Ben Adam l'makam and Ben Adam l'chaverev v'asisa the Yasher v'satoiv. V'chein b'inyan HaShabbos. Here's another example. The Ramban writes here, B'kitzur, but L'maisa, in the pasuk of Tishbais, in Vayikra, in Chav Gimel, he explains it by Chava. It says, Lamitas Malachas. Now it says Tishbais, B'Shah. What does Tishbais mean? So the Ramban, that's an essay klali that you're supposed to basically not to do things. Afalpi, they're not Lamitas Malachas. You're supposed to relax on Shabbos. You're not supposed to do Omel V'Tircha. There's no Isser to move around furniture. You know what the Isser is? Tishbais. No Isser to decide to restack your books. Tishbais. It's not lamites malachis. It's a bittul mitzvah based on the basic understanding. You've got to take Shabbos in the broad understanding. It's the day of Shvisa. You can be a novel b'shus HaTorah. So here it says no. Look what he writes here. V'chei in Shabbos osha malachas b'lav atrachim b'esei. Klali shenemer tishbo. It's the same idea. Many times there's pratim and there's klalim. So there by tishbo it's mamish and essay defined on tircha for Shabbos. Okay. By Kedeshim Tiyu, it's broad, very much. Yosher V'Tov, it's very, very big. Tam Akasa Shomaki Kodesh Ani Hashem Elokechem Leimer. Anachnu Niskeh, this is what we need. L'davka Bai, when can we cleave to God? B'yotenu Kedoshin, if we are transcendent, so we can then cleave to God who is transcendence. V'ini Zeh Ki'in HaDibra HaRishon B'Aseres HaDibros. No Kedeshim Tiyu is, ultimately it brings you literally, it connect to God, right? How do you connect to God? By Kedeshim. How do you connect to God? By Vasisas Yashar Tov B'Inei Hashem. So Mele, now you understand what Rabbeinu Yoina says, that how do you know God? By his mishpatim, because with his mishpatim you know Vasisas Yashar Tov. Mishpatim are there not just to follow the law, but to understand the spirit of the law. Once you understand the spirit of the law, you understand the value system of God. Once you understand the value system of God, that's the most you understand of anybody. Right? Your wives, you'll only know by, I said before, by her value system, by her Weltanschauung, and how she interacts with the world around her. Okay, that's exactly what you do when you do Kedeshim Tiyu Vasisas Yoshev Satayv. So you want to know the value system of Kadosh Baruch Hu, start finishing Nashim Nezikin, Kachim and Tyrus, and basically knowing through that, distilling it into principles, and finally know Yosher V'Tov and Kedeshim Tiyu. This is the Ramban Shita. So this is obviously another understanding. It's not just that Leisachmoy is, so to speak, that's Ben Adam L'Chaver, everything is Ben L'Makayim, but that Ben Adam L'Chaveroi, as Rabbeinu Yoina says, is a tool to understand Anochi V'Layir L'cha. And that's what the Ramban jumps at in beginning of Mishpatim for Neichel Yichot Leisachmoid. Because Leisachmoid is not just, it's a super tool to understand who this Neichel Yilcha is. And that's what the Ramban says over here at the end of Keteshim. And that's the Rabbeinu Yoina that we learned. How is the best way of knowing God? By doing his Mishpatim. And that's why there's an idea of heaven Mesunim Bedin. That should be enough for today. I'm sorry. That should be short and sweet. There's an interesting Rav Yah. In Hilchos Kiyas Shofar, so the Magen Avraham brings that there's a the Rav Yah said that the nusach of the bracha is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Asher Kitsham Tzvois V'Tzvan Lishmoya Big Koil Shofar. Says what do you mean big Koil? Says Lishmoya Koil Shofar. Is that the Magen Avraham? What do you mean big Koil Shofar? The Tertzu, this Ramban Even Ezra's Pasha, the mitzvah is not just to hear the horn, but to hear what the horn has to say. The mitzvah is not just to hear the sounds, but to hear to listen to what it has to tell you. The Shmoya big koil is the having time of v'chulu, as we saw in that Ramban that Ibn Ezra, and that's why the Rambam Hilchos Tshuva points out there is a message of the shofar. Wake uri yishenim mishnaschem, wake up. So the Shmoya big koil shofar, the mitzvah is not just hearing the sounds, but hearing what it has to tell you equals uri yishenim mishnas. That's another example of the same idea of big koil and lit koil. Does not mean the sounds, but means the music behind it. What does it have? It's a value system. We don't paskin that la'alocha. That's the big koil shofar. But the Rambam Afal Pikein brings it, which is interesting. Rambam brings it. It's a very interesting halacha. The Rambam Hilchos Tshuva often said that although shofar is a mitzvah, I say Afal Pikein Rem is yesh b'davar uri yishenim mishenaschem. It's a nice way of saying when you do tkiyas shofar, don't just think you're doing a mitzvah. Here you have to think of the value system behind it. Otherwise, why would the Rambam bring it? According to the Rav Yah, that's Ikar Adin, it's part of the bracha. I say this because I once saw a certain article of an Gava Rabbah telling a story that his father screamed at a Baltkiya that was crying before a shofar. He says, do you cry before a matzah? And this was idealized as some kind of halachic man of who knows what. I think it's forget from the Rishonim, forget from Rambam, forget from the Rav Yah. But what can I do? No, the mitzvah is not just to do the dry mitzvah, but to see the philosophy behind the mitzvah and understand. That's supposed to teach you value systems, and that's in every mitzvah. That's Kedeshim Tiyu, and that's Vasisas Yashar Tov. It's also in Lishmoya B'Kol Shofar. Good night.